A little bit. Hey PJ, hey Justin, how are you guys tonight? Just getting things set up so everybody can pop in before we get started. We got a really good show for you tonight. Hi Jerry and Fred. So we've got a lot of exciting things to talk about, and I hope you guys have a good time tonight. I'm gonna bring Brent up here on camera here in a little bit. He's just finishing his dinner. Ed, Chris, how are y'all doing tonight? So we're going to talk about, hey Sean, Jody, how are you? We're going to talk about our schedule of upcoming events for the next few shows. We're going to talk about the 2 new Fast and Furious sets that we're hitting on the interwebs here the last couple of weeks. We'll talk about the Legends Tour. And there was a video that Mike Zarnock posted on his YouTube page, and we're going to talk about that to get your thoughts and ideas on that as well. And then we're going to feature parking plates tonight from the late 80s. And then we're going to talk about the Dollar General promo and some NASCAR diecast. NASCAR doesn't really get a lot of play now, so we're going to talk about the way things were in the early to mid to late 90s on NASCAR. All right, so we'll get this thing started. Hot Wheels guy, how are you tonight? Thanks for stopping in. And the first thing we're going to see here is we're going to talk about the next upcoming shows that are going to be in this area. So on June 14th, as everybody knows, we are having our show, our 1-year anniversary at the VFW here in Norfolk. And with that, as far as we know, we haven't been given any restrictions. You're all more than welcome to attend. If you feel like you're not comfortable, then that's fine. We're okay with that. We'll see you in the next time. June 20th, there are 2 shows going on. Tracy, how are you? Aaron, how are you? The 2 shows are, one is in Fremont. That is posted by, or hosted by Doug Peterson. He has come up to Norfolk a couple of times, and he also helps run Grand Island and Lincoln. Here is a flyer for his show. Even though I'm showing these right now, they will be posted to the web page or to the Facebook page a little bit later. So if you don't see them now, or you can't really see them, don't worry. We'll get you copies out there for everybody. Okay. So that was what's going on June 20th in Fremont. Also, the All Iowa Club will be having their first show back at their club in Des Moines, and it is at the church there. I don't have the address right in front of me, but I can get that out if somebody would like to know. As far as I know, the All Iowa show is a go. It was more of a location question. That was what I understood it to be, PJ. Not whether or not they were going to have it. It was more whether or not where they were going to have it. So that's just how I understand it for it. Mike, how are you tonight? So once that takes care of June 20th. June 28th is the Norfolk Toy Farmer Show. That is more of a farm toy show, but It does have a few Hot Wheels and other die casts. It's a good show to find bargains and deals, so something to keep in mind. It's out at the Northeast Community College as well. Hey Tony, how are you tonight? Okay, moving on. The next thing that I see up that I have a flyer for is the South Sioux City Toy Show here at the Delta Hotel. That's Sunday, November 22nd, 2020. Again, there's a flyer for that one as well. Hinton is December 12th. Again, that's more of a farm toy show. I don't know for sure on that one what's all involved in that. Hey Chuck, how are you? Vicky, nice to make it in tonight. And then January 21st or January 17th, 2021 is the Toy and Buckle Show in Lincoln. And then March next year is the Grand Island show that Miss Vicky is watching or hosts. So that's pretty much the upcoming shows. PJ, you were saying about PJ will probably put out some more information on the Fremont show if that's still happening. It looks like there's some questions about whether or not Doug can make that happen. So if it does happen, it would be really great if we could go out there and support him for that show. Like I said, there's 2 shows going on, so you have a good chance of seeing something really good at either place. Brent, are you here? Can I get a word from you so I can pop you up on camera? Okay, I'm trying to get Brent up here, and then we'll get going a little bit more in depth tonight. And like we're going to be talking about. Hey, there you are.
Hello.
Okay, great. Hey, Adam, how are you tonight? So like I said, we went over the schedule already. There's lots of great shows that are coming up. Again, health and safety concerns are always at the top of the list, and whether or not those shows will still happen. We're going to talk about the next thing is there was 2 Fast and Furious sets that were put out. There was a lot of chatter about those, I would say. Wouldn't you think so, Brent, on those 2 new Fast and Furious sets?
Just a little bit.
Well, as the pictures were circulating and everything, it kind of came out on the Full Force set. That's the new 5-car set. Is that the GTX, which is a new car for the set, looks like it's going to have a wheel variation. It's going to have 2 different sets of wheels on that, so that's going to be pretty cool. I don't think we've seen anything like that for a while, so just something to keep an eye out for. And on the diorama set, there was a lot of talk about that. A lot of people were upset with what cars were being used and why there were so many repeats and this and that. Well, come to find out that the Charger is a different color of black. I think this one's more glossy. And that's pretty much what everybody's reaction was. But the other thing I thought was kind of intriguing was the Jetta. The Jetta has a different hue of white on it. A lot of people are saying, well, it's because it's supposed to be the Race Wars version. In that scene where Jesse runs his Jetta against the S2000 and gets smoked, and then Jesse gets smoked later on in the movie. So, that's something different. And then the rollback is a rollback that hasn't been used before, but isn't exactly correct. And, the Super. But I honestly think the Super and the rollback are the 2 best cars from that set.
Yeah, I would agree. I would like to see him do something different. I mean, there's been 9 Fast and Furious movies. Do we have to keep using the same Charger over and over and over again? I mean, there's so many cool cars that they could have done. They just need to I mean, even though the second one wasn't it didn't have any of the main characters, the cars in the second movie were insane. And the only one they've really used is Sookie's car, and then that other guy's car. I can't remember his name, but yeah, there's hundreds of cars they could use for that, but they just keep redoing the same ones. So
yeah, I think it's the Super that they reuse a lot.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's disappointing. There were a lot of good pickup trucks. There was two really good muscle cars. The Yanko is getting the basic version being done. Well,
Yeah,
I agree, Dave. There's nothing ever wrong with a Charger, but
no, there's been a lot of other cars. I'd like to see the F-Bomb Camaro, um, Roadrunners, anything. I'm just get some different stuff out there.
yeah.
But no, Dave, I know you're like your Chargers.
And
Yeah, I agree.
true statement.
That's most likely what's causing it, Dave.
And that's a lot of that. I mean, Jimmy, who is one of the PR guys for Hot Wheels, has said that's what stops them from a lot of things. Because people wanted a Fall Guy truck. What were a couple other cars that I think people really liked especially from the 80s.
There's that Viper from the Viper television show. I'd really like to see that one made up.
Yeah, that would be really cool too. So licensing as well, the Jensen would be awesome. Licensing is a big part of that issue. It costs Mattel lots of money to get the rights to use those cars, and then they have to be a certain way to meet the requirements of the auto manufacturer, which has got them in trouble in the past. Hence why we don't have any Ferraris, and we lost the Toyota rights for a little while. So, but with that, also it causes a cost increase, which is another reason why you're seeing your entertainment and your premium cars go from $447 up to $547, and even at some points they were at $250, even $350. Now they're up to $5 and $6.
PJ, I believe Hot Wheels could, but again, it just comes down to the money. And Greenlight, are they truly done with it? I mean, they might decide to. I mean, there's not really you can do a lot with those cars. Especially like Knight Rider, you can't. You can only make it black. You can only make Dom's Charger black. You can't make Dom's Charger in purple, and that's one of the things that holds Hot Wheels back. I think with some of the movie style cars, the VJ, the Bear Rig, you can only do it in red and white. You can only do Snowman's Kenworth in black and gold. You can only do Bandit's Trans Am the same. You can only do them one release, so it's a possibility. It would be something that Hot Wheels would have to look at. And knowing that there is the demand that there is for the square bodies right now, I mean, Hot Wheels could do something with it. They've done a lifted 80, an 80s square body before, so all they'd have to do is just tampo the thing and put a light bar on it, and it'd be good to go. So,
well, and change it from a square body Chevy to a square body GMC, because I think that was actually a GMC truck. And not
that's just that's easy.
So all of that plays in.
I don't think that the Silverado actually has any logos on it.
No, it just has the Silverado badging and emblems on them. But all of that stuff comes into play in cost. So it's just different things we got to look out for. All right, so moving on. The next thing I would like to talk about, unless you got some more on that, Brent.
Yeah, it's an 83, but there's no bow ties. There's nothing on the tailgate. I don't see any badging on the fenders. So yeah, technically they could just change the name like they've done to so many cars in the past, and they could do the Fall Guy pretty quickly.
I think the Friday Night Lights one has the badging on it, but it's all Tampo. So that's again not
that one does.
Big change.
Yeah.
For the Legends Tour, I was doing some research on that as well this week, And I saw a couple of things. They still have like the early June dates listed, but they don't say whether they're postponed or rescheduled. They're just out there on the RLC website. So, if you're checking that out, take it with a grain of salt. They just maybe haven't made the official announcements yet, or maybe they might get the word that it's a go. It again all up to the local areas where these are going to be at. The vending machine is even in more flux, I think, because that is a traveling type situation. So that's really going to be flexible. But looking at the dates ahead, as of now, this is not to mean these are gospel or anything like that. But June 6th, they're going to Rogers, Arkansas. Um, that's a pretty far distance for most of us in this general vicinity. July 25th is Waukesha, Wisconsin. That's somewhere around Milwaukee. So that one or August 8th in Lakewood, Colorado are really, to get the full-blown Legends Tour, our best shot to go. The vending machines last year they went through Kansas and Oklahoma and Missouri. This year I think it's something very similar. There were no spots listed in Nebraska or Iowa or South Dakota to mention. So again, we may have struck out there, but keep plugging away at that, and we might get something in there. Okay, and for those who haven't seen the two main cars that they had for this year there was an ID Hot Wheels ID Bone Shaker. It's in a different color than the regular release, but it's kind of like a goldish brown, best way to describe that.
Yeah, it's a goldish brown. It's got, I want to say, gold wheels on it, and I think the door says Legends on it, Legends Tour on it. And then there's also I believe it's a yellow Legends 55 Bel Air Gasser. I can't remember what else. I think they're doing the Volkswagen camper. What's it called? The Sonagon, or
yeah, that's
Sonagon, something, whatever it's called. I know that one's there. And there's another one that is eluding me at the moment.
I know last year they did two Zamac cars.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to think of the other Zamac, but it's not. I can't remember. I know that I've seen pictures of it, though.
And that Tampo setup on, yeah, the Tampo setup for the 55 Gasser is the same Tampo setup that they used for the Super Treasure Hunt, just to give anybody a visual reference.
Very good point. I forgot. Yeah, it's the Isky version.
Yes. Now, Chuck, you were asking about the Detroit show. When I didn't remember seeing the dates for that, but if it was after at least June 30th, it was still scheduled to happen. Now that doesn't mean it's going to continue to happen. It's just scheduled on the calendar. And yes, cheers, Pepsi. Switching it up tonight. All right, so the next thing is the Dollar General mail-in. Brent, if you want to talk about that for a little bit.
The promotion's going on for another week, I believe. In order to get you can get your receipts up until, I think, Thursday, and you've got to get them mailed out. I could be wrong on the date for the end of the receipt period, but all the cards have to be postmarked by, I believe, Thursday. And otherwise, and I have actually made this mistake before. I sent like 60 cards out like a day late and didn't realize it, and I didn't get them, and it was the long gone from the a couple of years ago in the yellow, but I do have it now, but I paid for them on eBay, which is really annoying. But yeah, you've got to have everything wrapped up, postmarked, and in the mail by Thursday. And all you got to do it is if you go onto the RLC page, if you don't know how to do it, you go onto the RLC website, the HotWheelsCollectors.com, and you click on the picture of the Datsun wagon. Nice, Chuck. Yeah, you click on the picture of the Datsun wagon, you scroll down, and there's an order form part towards the bottom. And you click on that, and it'll take you to another website, and it'll have a U.S. flag and I believe a Canada flag. Click on the U.S., fill out all your information. I believe the shipping and handling on them is like $5. And then, so if you're doing 2, you can make sure you change it. And then when you print, once you go through and you actually pay for it, they give you a receipt screen, and you print that out, and you cut there's a little address, you cut that off and you tape it on there. And then there's a barcode as well. And I always tape the barcode on, and I tape the little address on, as long as filling out my information and the information of the P.O. box that it's going to. I always think it's hilarious whenever I fill out the P.O. box, because whenever they look at it, they normally look at me like I'm crazy because I'm shipping it to a car, because that's always kind of fun, especially when it's a legit car, like these, 71 Datsun wagon, or that's 69 wagon. But yeah, so it'll say 69 Datsun wagon when you fill it out. So yeah, you got to have all that in by Thursday. Make sure you've got your all your blisters removed. All they want is just the cardboard, and they actually have a list of all the case codes. And if you don't know what case codes we're referring to, down at the bottom, there's this little bitty thing right here. This one here is the L2593. That is on the majority of almost every single Hot Wheel car, mainline wise. Let's see. The IDs, they actually have the same thing as well. It takes 20 card backs. I've got I have a few torn off, ready to go. For all you that think I don't open cars, yeah, there you go. Matching stacks. Boom. We open cars, folks. But yeah, so this will be the mail-in for the Datsun, and the one that Kent was holding up will be the one that we use for the Monza. So,
just a couple.
And the Monza, go ahead, Kent. I was going to say the Monza you've got until mid-June to get those ones out. So got a little longer on those.
So a couple other things you want to note too is that you can use the UPC off of a 9-pack and off of a 20-pack as well. So you still have to have $20 worth of cars. And when you use the 20 packs, they're not quite $20. So you got to buy a couple main lines to make that up. The other thing is also on the back of those cards, you'll see copyright dates. There are dates for those copyrights. Sometimes it says 2017, 2018, 2019. Specify in the rules with you as to what they are. Hey, Brian, How are you, man?
And the interesting thing is this is Thomas and Friends. It's new for 2020, but it has actually got the exact same case code that everybody needs, and it has a 2017 copyright on the back. So
we're not sure where the next mail-in is going to be from. At least I haven't heard. Brent, have you?
No, all I know is they did the Dollar General first, and then right after it, they did the Kroger, which, for if everyone doesn't know, bakers. And I know there's some bakers in Omaha. I don't know if there is any others out, in the rest of the state. I don't know for sure, but there's normally, if you go on to the Hot Wheel forums, and you can look in. And you can find like the mail-in information, and there's been lists of every single. Kroger is just not Kroger. Kroger has about 65 different affiliated smaller stores that they use with it. So,
all right. So at this time, I'm going to try to bring up Brian Klein. He just popped into the room, and we're going to do a little Q&A with Brian. So, Brent, I'm going to drop you off for just a second.
See you guys a little bit later.
Okay, I'm trying to get Brian brought up here. Well, it's not just Kroger, Chuck. You can use King Supers. There's multiple. Like Brent said, there's like close to 30 to 60 different stores. There is a tremendous amount. Mr. Brian Klein, welcome to the party.
How are we doing? This is kind of spur of the moment. Like I said, I just got home from work, just walked in the door, so
Hey, so that works.
don't mind any of the background garbage.
Well, that cyclone's in there, so yeah, there's plenty of garbage.
Yeah, it's buried downstairs in the basement, but it's there.
Hey, thanks for coming on tonight. We really appreciate having you come on and talk for a few minutes. And while we're waiting for the race to get out of rain delay, hopefully that might be for a little bit. So if you would introduce yourself for a little bit and tell us who you are, where you're from, and how we are.
As I get my phone here so it doesn't make noise, there we go. My name's Brian Klein. I've been collecting for 17 plus years. Started out like anyone else, buying anything and everything I could, spending tons of money on crap that I didn't care about. But have refined that since then and met a whole slew of great friends with the hobby. Yourself, Brent, Roy, Greg, Mike, Dave, designers and Mattel employees, and the list goes on. But mostly now I just collect premium stuff. I've kind of steered away from the main lines. They don't really appeal to me as much. I like a metal base. I like Real Riders. I like RLC convention releases and so on. But other than that, just like everyone else, hunting down these little toy cars to put them on display and have them in my collection.
So you talked about premium there for just a brief mention. I don't think a lot of people realize how long premium has been around. The term has only been used recently in the last couple of years, but what can you tell me about premium and why do you like collecting them other than what you've already mentioned?
Really, the premium cars, they're more geared towards an actual, to a collector. The dollar main lines, they're cool. They kind of test some new stuff out and do some neat things every once in a while with them. But the premium stuff, you're getting a better class of paint. You're getting a better, better deco or tampo style, whichever you want to call it. You're getting more attention to detail. The designers that go and do the premium stuff, they really aren't trying to crank out as many designs as they can, to hit that dollar mark in their marketing scheme. They're putting a little more time, a little more thought and effort into how the cars look, how they come out. They're definitely produced less. They're still mass produced, but there are less of those. The Real Riders and the specialty wheels are a big plus for me. They just look and display much better, in my opinion. And then you move up into RLC stuff, convention release stuff, and naturally you're getting the cream of the crop there. You're getting dedicated designers and dedicated designs that are very specific, extremely detailed, and in my opinion worth the money. If I'm going to spend all this time and effort collecting these cars, I want to have nice stuff to put on the wall and nice stuff to show, and the premium lines and up, that's worth the money to me.
Okay. So, we had talked a little last week over the weekend, and what did we say was the date we thought premiums came out, like 2008, 2009-ish?
09 was the real. There's always been premiums with the gosh, you're really testing me here. The flying colors, flying customs, the hot ones, those were always kind of premium for back, in the Blackwall eras. But when it really became premium was about 09 with the slick rides, the Reese's panel, 55 panel, that set. That's when it really started to take form for the modern era. You move up from there. I mean, in my opinion, that 2009 through 2011 stretch, premium really took off. You had the 09 slick rides. Then they followed that up with the 2010 delivery series, which is where we saw the first custom convoy, all of the car part type decos, which everybody loves. Then, in my opinion, 2010 Garage Series, you talk about one of the best series and largest series to collect, with the 3 color waves, the signature bases, lot of new tools, and a lot of really nice, good looking cars in that 2010 set. I wish I still had them all. I just recently had to get rid of some of them, but I did have them all. But it's a tough set to complete, and the popularity is really strong with that 2010 Garage Series.
I know that you were pretty frantic on catching all of those cars in the last couple of conventions that I was with you, and you were pretty dedicated on that. And you know, Chuck brings up a great point too about the oil cans and the black box sets as well. Oh, those those dreaded rubber bands.
I haven't dipped my toe into the 100% and the can series. I don't know, for whatever reason, my style of what I enjoy or what I want to collect, I've always been drawn to Hot Wheels because they add that little cool flair to their design. I've never been a huge fan of like M2 or, you know, Auto World or Johnny Lightning, because to me they are too realistic for my liking. You know, I like a diecast that has that cool look.
Little bit of customization going on.
Yeah, that just a little bit of added character rather than just shrinking a real car and making it look so original, so to speak. You know, I can go out and see that at car shows and anywhere, but with the Hot Wheels, I always liked how they kind of trimmed the body lines and set the wheels in and just made them look a little cooler.
Okay, so that brings me up to something else too. Can you tell me or give an example of a car that you were just ecstatic to get, and that, you know, you were beyond belief when you were actually able to verify that car? Because I know you did a lot of research.
I knew this was going to come up, and sadly with my work schedule this week, I didn't have time to dig it out. You know, I just went through a big move, so a lot of my stuff's still packed up. But I think Dallas convention, that convention, I was able to come across in a room a 64 GMC panel, and it was in a good friend of mine's room. He had it mixed in with some other, you know, quote unquote prototypes. And of course, when it comes to prototypes, you want to be a little careful when something doesn't have a certificate or documentation. But I looked at it. I had a couple buddies there with me that knew what they were looking at. They said, you know, it looks real. The price was right and fair enough to where I was willing to take a chance on it. Well, lo and behold, this 64 panel, and when I come back on again, I'll have it to show pictures of it. But it was a deco sample piece from Mattel, where they go in the model shop and they just pick a casting out of a bin that they got sitting there, and they paint it and put the decals on it to test for another release. So this one tested the release of the Holiday Drag Dairy and the Marvin the Martian Kenworth from the Pop Culture series. I had the chance to run into Steve Vandervate, and he's one of the lead designers for premiums and RLC and whatnot. I showed him the piece. He flipped it over and looked at it, looked it over. He said, yes, this piece, I remember it. It came through our shop. This is what we used to test the deco on. So to be able to get a piece like that and verify, you know, I don't have documentation yet. I'm still working on that. But to verify that, yes, this is a model shop pre-production deco sample piece, and it happens to be of a casting that I love, the 64 GMC panel. So it's just cool stuff like that you got to kind of look under every rock, so to speak, and know what you're looking for, and then be able to know, hey, I can go talk to this designer at a convention, or I can run into this person who might be able to verify, and turns out it was a legitimate piece.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I remember when we were out in LA for that, that was something you were really excited about, and Brent and I and yourself were all talking in the bar, really, and you're sitting there showing.
Oh yeah.
Just like, oh yeah, I actually got it verified. So it was really, really cool to see that moment, and that was awesome for you. So
yeah, it was a pretty cool piece.
what advice would you give to, when I say young collectors, I'm really referring to newer collectors. You know, what advice would you give them on how they should build their collection?
You know, if I was speaking to my younger self, the top of the list would be to not collect for value, collect what you like. Myself included, a lot of young or up and coming collectors, people who are new to the hobby, I see them chasing down pieces because they hold a high dollar value, you know, trying to get or wanting to get pieces that are worth a lot of money, especially going into stores, and you know, you're searching through the Hot Wheels and you see stuff and you think, oh man, that's, you know, everybody wants that, it's worth a lot of money, so I got to have it. You know, collect what you enjoy, collect what you like, because prices rise and fall weekly in this hobby, and you might wind up having having a lot of stuff that you're not as excited about, and it might push you away from the hobby, you know, for the long term. If you get in real quick, you start spending a lot of money on these cars and buying stuff that other people think is popular, it might burn you out, and you might shy away from the hobby because you don't really like what you're buying, so to speak.
No,
if that makes any sense.
No, it makes sense. To me, it almost seems like you're trying to validate yourself amongst other collectors, and I don't necessarily think, you know, how great your collection, because you've got all the greatest, latest, newest thing.
Says the guy with like 10,000 cars sitting behind him, you know.
Yeah, but it's all stuff I like. So, But, you know, what really validates to me other collectors is what we're doing right now. Being able to give each other a little bit of grief and still appreciate what we have.
This hobby to me has turned into it's more fun for me to meet new friends and new acquaintances, enjoy the hobby together, but it's more about the friends. Senseless plug there. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Here, how about, there we go. Starbucks. But no, it's more becoming about the friendships and the fellowships than it is so much about tracking down the toy cars. And, you know, I'm so glad that I've stuck with it and collected this long, met the people that I have. And for me, it's not about the money. You know, it's not about flipping cars or making, you know, quick buck off of cars. I'm here to tell you that when I go to convention, I fill my cards and I buy 6 or 7 of each, and they sit in a tote. You know, they sit in a tote for that rainy day whenever I have a good friend that needs something, and I can hit him up and say, you know what, here you go, at cost. You know, that gasser from Pittsburgh that's selling for, you know, $300, you know, I got some sitting in a tote, and if someone really needs one and it's a good friend of mine, there you go. Take it.
Yeah, we could tell another story about that Pittsburgh gasser too.
Oh, yes, we could.
I need to find that.
I'm sure that video is still floating around out there somewhere.
It's actually been posted to the page here at least once or twice. But, you know, you might as well talk about it. I'm sure there's a few people who haven't heard about that story.
Oh, yeah. That's our buddy Roy Lee Friend Jr. And I met him my first convention ever in 2000. Yeah, the celebrity. Anybody that runs into Roy, anybody that sees or talks to him, just refer to him as the celebrity, and he'll get a kick out of it. But My first convention, I met him in 2010 and built this great friendship. And it's about the people more than about making money off the toy cars. Well, that Pittsburgh gasser come out and we were there. And Roy just says, you know what? Frick it. I'm going to burn one of these. I don't care about this value, and people are worried too much about value. And I'll be darned if we went out and got some lighter fluid and burnt that sucker right there live on Facebook. And you should have. The original video was just a crap show, man. Everyone throwing a fit. Oh, why would you burn that? But it's more of a symbol of, don't make this about the money. You know, don't make it about the cars and how much they're worth. Make it about the people you meet, the friendships you build. And, you know, the cars are a part of that too, but don't make it solely about that.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great message that he sent out to everybody. And I think it resonated with a lot of the big people that were, you know, paying attention to what was going on in collecting. Speaking of the devil, and he shall appear.
Yeah, right there he is. Man, Roy, were your ears burning? Is that what was going on?
We're going to have to get him on here. We could have a whole show with just him.
Oh, gosh.
So,
need a whole show just to get his hair in frame.
Yeah, because that's awesome right there. So where do you see the future of the hobby going?
Oh, boy. The future of the hobby. You know, as far as recent years, I really couldn't say for sure, other than I see a lot of really cool things coming out of the RLC, which we haven't seen in a lot of years. I see Mattel is paying attention finally to collectors. You know, for a lot of the early years I was involved, the RLC just kept plucking out just this and that and throw this paint on this and pick up this casting that we haven't run in a while, and not really paying attention to what collectors want, just kind of putting stuff out there. And now I see them really taking a little time to know what collectors want. We've gotten some so cool pieces coming out, and I like that. You know, the adjustable suspension stuff, the Lambos with the scissor doors. There's a rock crawler Jeep coming out that has full travel suspension. You know, there's a lowrider coming out that has, you know, full travel suspension for hydraulics, and just the list goes on, how they're listening to us more and making stuff that we want in our collections, not just cranking out repeats of stuff, so to speak. So I hope that it's moving towards a more collector-oriented business and not just putting tons of main lines out, so to speak, just to turn a profit.
Yeah, I like that. The last couple more questions here. If you could turn an ear or two over in Mattel, what casting would you like to see come back?
Come back or new?
Come back and new. Because I think I'm already.
Oh.
I'm gonna pull it out here because I think I already know. I just got.
Well,
I know which one you want.
I don't know as I would have an answer for a casting to come back. You know, 17 years, I'm still pretty young in the collecting hobby. So there's not a lot of stuff that I enjoy. Yeah, that's a cool one, don't get me wrong. I'm just not as into the older stuff, so to speak. But as far as a casting to a new casting that's never been done, they're already doing one that I have loved for a long time, and I've actually worked on one and drove one, and that is the Dia Tommaso that's coming out. I'm really excited for that. I would love it if they did a Pantera as well. More specifically, a modified wide-body Pantera, like I see a lot of them do that own those. But of course, top of my list and I have a little shred of hope now since the Cyclone came out.
Yeah.
I want a 92 GMC Typhoon.
Yeah.
I own the Typhoon. So I definitely have wanted that since I started collecting, is that GMC Typhoon. And I'm really hoping, since this Cyclone is such a hit, that they also bring the Typhoon up as well.
It wouldn't take much work. I mean, most of it's there. You know, you just got to add the back end to it. But I think it's possible.
Yep. That would just be killer.
If Johnny
And
can
see something like that pop up in the RLC or in a convention that'd probably, I'd buy as many as I could get.
All right, so last question for the night, and we'll let you get back to the race here, is
Alrighty.
what is your most important moment and your disappointing moment in the hobby so far?
Okay. Honestly, my most important moment was in St. Louis in 2010, my first convention, and I hope Roy's still on here listening because it involves him, was myself and him. Everybody gave us crap because we were the early birds. We were up before anyone else, always up at like 6 in the morning. Everyone slept in till noon, waste half the day. But that moment when we got together that morning, we had just met. We said, hey, let's go over to McDonald's and sit down and have some breakfast. We sat down, had some breakfast, talked about each other and talked about the hobby, and, basically had a good sit down. And from there forward, I've been to every convention since. I've met so many other good friends. That moment there kept me coming back to conventions and put me in front of a lot of now what I consider would be lifelong friends. As far as most disappointing, I don't know if there is a specific instance that I can think of that was very disappointing. If I could think of one thing that encompasses the most disappointing thing, it would be the start of those darn raffles. Raffles, to me, are difficult for me to get on board with because it represents so much about the money, the high prices of cars, and, raffling these things off for 2 or 3 times what they're worth sometimes. And that's probably the most disappointing thing is the amount of raffles that go on and the amount of money exchanged over the toy cars, and people that get disappointed because they spend all this money on raffles and may come up with nothing. So that's probably my 2.
All right. Well, I'm good with both of those. And that is pretty good opinion to have. Thank you for coming on tonight, sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Man, it was good to see you. Hopefully we'll see you up in Sioux City, and maybe again in Des Moines a week in middle of June. I don't know when or where that's going to be at. So
I sure hope it goes on. I sure hope it doesn't get stopped.
Yep. Like I said, hopefully we're going to see you then. If not, we'll hopefully maybe LA, but definitely in Atlanta.
It's really tough to commit to that, knowing that I'm planning to build a house this year, because I don't know what's going to happen for me.
I understand completely where you're coming from on that. I mean, I asked to go out to LA last year, and it was just like, I can't do it. It just wasn't going to work. So, so I definitely understand where you're coming from on that. So if it's not LA this year, maybe it's Atlanta next year or one of the Iowa shows. But thank you again for coming on.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it. And welcome to the page.
All right. Thank you, guys. And go Hawks.
No, bad. Just go Big Red. And that's all I got to say about that.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. All right, everybody. That was Mr. Brian Klein. I'm going to bring up Brent back now. And there we go. He's coming back on. So we just got a couple more things to talk about tonight, unless you guys got questions. Whoa, there he is.
You literally just hung up with Brian like a nanosecond ago, and then I was like, I got an invite. So there's a little bit of a lag.
So good interview tonight with Brian. If you haven't had a chance to message him or ask more questions, I'm sure he'd be willing to answer those for you in his appropriate amount of time. But again, I appreciate him coming out and onto the show for us. So the next couple of things that we have to talk about is something that's called parking plates. For those of you who don't know what those are, they're starting from the late 80s, like 88, 89, up through to they're basically a car inside of a little plastic box, a license plate, hence parking plates. I had posted a link to the Hot Wheels wiki that goes, no, Chuck, that is not authorized in this room. That is definitely not authorized. But anyway, that link that I posted has all of the variations to include pictures, so you can see that this car here has various different tampos on it. It's all, the main color is the same, but it's all the tampos and these stripes here that are different. And then how they work is you put the car inside the plate, or inside the park, put the plate on it like so, and there you go. The other cool thing is these are stackable. They have little spots right here and up on the top and on the bottom to where you can stack them on top of each other or side by side. The other car I wanted to show tonight was, of course, the Ferrari Testarossa. This car came...
Roy.
All right. Thanks for coming in tonight, Roy. I appreciate it. It comes in a couple different variations. There's a red seat. There's this variation with the tan seats. And then there's a variation with tan seats and no tampos on there as well. So that's the tampo. And again, you put it into the thing like so, snap it into place. And then, like I said, you can stack these together. And I'm making an idiot out of myself. But they slide together like so, and they stack pretty nice and easily. And again, they go through the late 80s, all the way up to the late 90s. The late 90s ones run through Avon, and you can order them through there. And then Brent's showing off the red seat interior, which he's just trying to make fun of me because
No, not.
I
went and found it so I could show it. So we can clearly have the variation. Yours has gray and mine has red.
Yeah, so very cool car. Very cool series. Relatively inexpensive to pick up. You just got to know where to look. And as always, haggle and negotiate, because that is the important part. All right, so the last thing I had for tonight was we're going to talk about some NASCAR. And we're going to talk about NASCAR diecast, because NASCAR diecast isn't really, well, it's kind of trashed, honestly. I mean, in the hobby itself, in the early 90s up through to the mid 2000s, it's probably the hottest diecast item out there, other than, you know, your Hot Wheels are always Hot Wheels. That's going to be a given. But the main thing to grab back in those days was NASCAR. And there were several companies that were doing it. Hot Wheels was doing it. Johnny Lightning was doing it. Matchbox had it. Matchbox had the early Days of Thunder cars in there. Now, those were really cool sets at the time. But the company...
There was also Road Champs as well.
What were the two that you mentioned? Road Champs and which other one?
Racing Champions.
Racing Champions, yep. Racing Champions was the early standard until another company called RCI, or Racing Collectibles Incorporated, which later became Racing Collectibles of America, RCCA for short, which later was bought out by Lionel, and then that's a whole nother story. But RCCA was the gold standard for die-cast NASCAR collectibles, both in the 1/64th scale and in the 1/24th scale. And at the time, they were relatively inexpensive to get. They were roughly about $100 to get the top line car, and it wasn't like a chase thing. There was a limited run, usually about 10,000. Yep, Action or RCCA. They were about 10,000 to a car, depending on the driver. Earnhardt usually was a 10,000 run driver, easily. So tonight I'm going to show you 3 cars that I pulled out of my collection that I thought everybody would like. They're pretty iconic cars for what they were at the time. And when Action built a car, they had it in 3 basic levels. They had a bank, which had clear windows and black windows. And then eventually they quit making the black windows, so those are a little bit more desirable than the clear window banks. Then they had their standard car, and then they had what was called an elite car. And the elite, by definition, had all the bells and whistles that you would ever see on a car. Really, really detailed. So the first car I'm going to show tonight is Darrell Waltrip's 1983 Pepsi Challenger. And
there you go.
With that, it came with an opening trunk, and you can see the fuel cell in there as well. Detailed, painted all out with plastic gas lines and, returns and the fuel acceptance piping and everything. Really, really detailed. That's what made Action really well known. On the driver's side, the window net, it's actual net. It's very similar to the material that was used at the time or when these cars were built in the late 90s. So that's pretty cool. Most of the other cars was hard plastic mold, that was attached to the interior of the body. This is actual netting. And then you'll see on the inside too, I don't really think you'll get a good view of it, but you'll see on there in the reflection the fire extinguisher, and all the great details are in there on that. Then for the engine itself, you'll just see how that's all done out, chromed out. I mean, even the Chevy logo that they used in '83 is correct on that. So that's another piece. Again, this is the Pepsi Challenger. It's one of the most iconic 80s cars around, driven by Darrell Waltrip. There's another version of this car that's white with blue. Mostly everything else is in blue. It's in a 1/64 scale only. So the next car I want to talk about is Richard Petty's 200th win Pontiac Grand Prix. This car is a standard car, so again, no opening trunk, plastic on the door or on the window netting as well. And again, still lots of good detail on the engine, but not to the same level of the Elites, but still more than what you could get at the standard Walmart or Target at the time. What's important about this car, other than the 200th win, was President Reagan was in attendance for this car, or for this win and for this race at the Firecracker 400, and was the first time any sitting president went to a race. So again, pretty important car in the history of NASCAR. thought I'd share that with you. And the last car, again, is another Richard Petty car. This is an Elite. This is his 1992 Pontiac Grand Prix that he raced in Atlanta in his final race. This is also his last race and Jeff Gordon's very first race, along with, I think, Dale Earnhardt won the champ. Was it 92, or was that Kulwicki that won that championship in 92? I think it was Kulwicki. If your brother was here, he would know.
Yeah, Brian would know for sure.
I think
I don't know if
Kulwicki's championship. The other thing that you'll see on here is that this car was actually autographed by Richard Petty himself. Again, with the Elites, it has the same standard detail that you'll see on the engine and in the trunk. And this is just some of the detail that is on the underside of the car. They were all numbered as well. Again, I'm sure this number is probably about the same way as the hologram stickers are for Mattel. It's stamped on there. Okay, 92 is Kulwicki. Thanks, Aaron. But this was
I was
number
working.
260. This is number 265 for that.
Yeah, 91 and 94.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Kulwicki's only year, but that's a pretty impressive year. He's an owner-driver that year. But again, those are just some of the NASCARs I have. And I just wanted to share those out with you because you don't get to see that type of car displayed very much or talked about. And the old NASCAR Cup cars are really great to look at, especially some of the sponsorships that were on there, and see some of these companies that aren't around anymore. Yeah, exactly. The race version was pretty much all tore up for that race. He just brought it out for the last couple of laps, so so he could finish out the race without a DNF. So that in and of itself is my NASCAR collection. Any questions or comments for tonight, or anything else like that? There is one other thing we want to mention. All tables are sold out for the June show here in Norfolk. So that is an awesome sauce to all you guys. It should be a great show. And don't forget, we have the Super Sunday Downhill Challenge. That's going to be pretty awesome. All right.
I'm going to lose, but I'm going to play.
Well, we already know Kelly Engelman's probably going to win with her all-metal car.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, Kel has a little bit of advantage over all of us with our plastic base cars, but
yeah,
that's, you never know. It may not roll, so.
That's our only hope. She picked well.
Yeah, she did.
We're going to do more racing. We'll do some more theme racing and whatnot like that, but and stuff too. So we'll go on from there. Any questions, or we're going to cut this off a little bit early tonight? I'm not even sure how long we've gone yet.
I don't know.
Well, Honda guy, your check-in is always good and appreciated, Mr. Steve. You missed some good stuff tonight, but you can always catch the.
We're almost at an hour, but I want to go back to what Ed was saying. Hot Wheels also did the go-karts and the golf carts as well, and they also did the tow truck, the city tow truck. They did those, and there's actually there's a set of those that are considered treasure hunt versions, and they actually say it's treasure hunt on the side of the packaging. I have one. I don't know where it is, but I have one. There was a big box set that had all of the racetracks at the time. They had all the trucks that were painted up. All of them had rail riders on them. It's a really neat set. If you've never seen it, go online, check it out. But yeah, there was the tow trucks, there was the go-karts, there was the golf carts.
Tail
Yeah, Yeah, tail gunner. There was motorcycles.
Yep, Scorching Scooter,
Motorcycles, Suburbans.
school buses,
Yeah, the school buses.
and those got taken apart just for their wheels, though.
Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, way too fast. Yeah. There was a ton of cars that they turned into for the NASCAR, just trying to get, I think, more people to keep, because, back in '07, I mean, I'll admit it, I quit collecting in '07 because it just was tuned after tuned after tuned. And I was just like, I can't do it anymore. And I quit. And I quit for about a year-ish, year and a half. And we know how this story ends. So, but yeah, there was a way to keep the hobby going for a little while. I think when they were in that little bit of a slump, but it worked out in the end. And here we are, 52 years later, it's still rolling. Yeah, Twin Wheels, Demons. Yeah, very good point there, Aaron. Yeah, there was, like I said, there was a ton of cars that they used for those.
I mean, we could just do another whole show on about 95, from the time period of 95 to '05, and whatnot, about how disappointing, I guess, really some of those cars and some of those years were in terms of what was being put out. But yet the foundation for where we're at right now, too, also comes into play. Because there's a couple cars that come to my mind that pop up and say, well, this is kind of how we got here. The first edition R32 Skyline comes out in '02, I think. And that's really, I think, the first car that kind of kicks off towards the JDM movement along with the Fast and Furious movies. And then in '04 or '05, when the Veyron comes out too, those two cars are really the big gems to me, other than a couple other cars that I'm sure I'm missing or forgetting to mention from that time period, that just kind of start propelling us more towards where '07 to now is taking us.
Well, there was also the Pikes Peak Tacoma. Mm-hmm. There was the Pikes Peak Comica. There was the older, I think it was a 2007 Honda Civic.
Yeah.
The green one. There was a couple of cars that were JDM, but they weren't actual real cars that had that look to them. There was carbon fiber hoods and the big exhaust tips and big wings and stuff that they were doing. And there's a couple of really cool ones that I actually still have from that era that are a part of my actual collection because I think they're a really cool car. Yeah, the Focus Drag Race car. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of two-car sets. Yeah, just dollars burning up.
Exactly.
But you don't know what's going to be hot at the time. I mean, the 510 alone is just one of the greatest examples of that because, like you said, the 510 just sat there and sat there and sat there. And now a loose car, even a loose one, is bringing anywhere from $400 to $600 right now. A carded one is almost $1,000. And these aren't asking for prices. These are sold prices.
What's going on, Jesse?
How are you doing tonight, Mr. VW? So, just a couple examples of things going on. All right. Any other questions? Any last alibis? All right. All right. All right, folks. Well, I'll see you next week. We'll have another guest on for a little bit as well. You'll like him. He's got a lot of great things to show. He's going to be probably featuring some older stuff, pre-1990. And y'all have a good night and be safe out there. And we'll see you next week. All right. Bye, Brent.
See you guys.